Welcome to the People Teaching People podcast. Joining me on the podcast is Jolie Viguers. I met Jolie at an event in downtown Calgary hosted by the Forum and Corrales and was thrilled when we reconnected later. And she said yes to being a guest on my podcast and sitting down and having this conversation with me about money, finances, financial coaching, community, curiosity, and values. Jolie is a gem of a human and a wealth of knowledge when it comes to money, pardon the pun. And I know that you are going to find huge value and return on your investment when you tune into this episode. Jolie is a CPA and financial coach with a passion to make her clients more confident with their money. She works with women to understand their money stories and deep values in order to achieve alignment with their spending and investing. Resolving the stress and frustration of debt and cash flow struggles and transforming that into sustainable plans makes for a big impact. Jolie has worked as an accountant for 20 plus years and is active in the financial independence community. She is also the leader at Canadian Ladies Money Club on Facebook with a mission to normalize the conversations about money. Thank you so very much for joining me today, Jolie.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm very excited to share this time with you.
I'm excited as well. I think there's a lot that I'm going to learn from you today. So, not only about you, but your area of expertise, of course. So, let's start off by diving into your story. And so, you are a financial coach. So, I'm curious what that journey has been like for you in becoming the financial coach that you are today. And you can go back as far as you want.
Okay. Well, let's go way back then. So I grew up in Saskatchewan. I knew I wanted to be an accountant, not the same as a financial coach. I knew I wanted to be an accountant back in grade 10, moved to Calgary, did all the schooling, did all that, got my CMA, which is now CPA designation to do the accounting, and I worked in accounting. And then we got to the point about 7 years ago where it was no longer a great fit, the company that I was at, and we were also in the position where we didn't need my income. Very privileged position. I completely understand. So I quit that job and I took what now I consider my gap year. And I did a lot of volunteer work. And then about a year and a half later, I started my business, which is well-being coaching, teaching financial literacy and getting people more confident with their money. So it was something that was passion for me in my gap year as I was doing a lot of volunteer work, teaching financial literacy. I've been doing that for 15 years, but I did a lot in that 1 year, doing lots of mentorships. And I thought, this is a place where I can really make a difference. And I didn't know how it was going to go when I started this business in 2018. And, here we are. And it's been so rewarding.
Isn't it funny sometimes when we make that shift or make that key decision, when we look back, it's just so interesting where that choice or that moment in time or that gap year, as you say, it kind of took you, like it took you in this completely different direction. Now, financial coach. So you said you started off, you wanted to, since grade 10 in high school, you're like, I'm going to be an accountant. In grade 2, I said I wanted to be a teacher, although I got like distracted with, I think, paleontologist in grade 3, geologist in grade 4, but then came back to teacher. But it's not maybe a term that everybody is familiar with. So what exactly is a financial coach and how might it be kind of similar or different to some of the other financial experts that we might know about or be thinking about?
And that's such a great question because a lot of people don't even know that positions like mine even exist because they're familiar with what the bank does with them for them, right? So they're more used to having an advisor. And even that financial advisor term is also kind of murky because a lot of them are licensed to sell you things And so they're actually more in a sales position than in an advising position. So that's why it's kind of a tricky thing to identify, because even within the regulated professions, it's difficult to know what each person and how they manage, right? So for me, my financial coaching is about empowering my clients, teaching them to get in touch with what they really want out of life, and then aligning their money to make that happen. So there's a lot of teaching that happens here because a lot of people don't understand the math and the money and the accounts and investing and compounding and budgets. Sure. But there's also a lot of teaching in the mindset and the psychology related to it. And so I spend a lot of time working with my clients, working through their money mindset and their money stories. And then we start to crunch the numbers to say, okay, this is how you can do these cool things in your life, right? I am not here to sell insurance or investment products or anything like that. I have zero affiliation or commission situations at all. I'm just here to teach and empower. And in the end, I want my clients off flying on their own. So it's very different. And the biggest thing is really people not knowing that services like this even exist. So the more we talk about it, thank you for inviting me here, the more people know, then the stronger our communities are going to be, because we're going to understand our money and what it's doing for our life.
Well, I think it is so important for people to know that there is financial support and teaching and mentorship and guidance out there, not attached to a specific product, because I think it's hard to kind of establish trust in those situations. You know, what is the motivation behind what people are telling me? But I love how, you know, money is so attached to feelings in so many ways, and money can be such a source of stress. I hear about, you know, the idea of, and I've felt like sometimes it feels like money takes control of you versus feeling like you have control of your money. And so the idea of being empowered with a plan and skills and tools to be able to use money in a way that allows you to live a life aligned with your values and the dreams and things that you have and the things that you want to do, I think is amazing. So pretty much anyone, I feel, could benefit from financial coaching. But do you have a group of people in particular, or do you tend to have a certain type of client that seems to be most interested? Or is there a particular type of person that would be a best fit for a financial coach like yourself?
So I just want to, designate that I am one financial coach. So my methods and the way I go about all of this might be a good fit, sure, but there are lots of others, and I mentor a lot of other financial coaches. So if I'm not the right fit, keep looking, because you will find someone who does have the right approach that's going to work for you. Okay, so that's one thing. As far as my typical clients, I usually work with women, and I often also work with couples. And the reason why I work with women is because a lot of them have felt burned by the financial institutions where they have done most of their banking, but also because they find me online. It's as simple as that, right? If I'm on Instagram, that's where the ladies are. They notice me there. There's some connections and community even there. They find me, they reach out, and then, hey, yes, let's work together. So usually, even with my couples clients, it's the ladies that find me first. And so that's who I do a lot of work with. But I have had some independent men also come. I have my youngest clients as a couples client have been 20 years old. My oldest was 62 years old. But I would say the majority are in their 30s, 40s, sometimes 50s. And for different reasons, everybody is looking towards what financial independence looks like for them, right? So at 20, that might be, moving out of mom's basement. At 62, that might be, can I afford to retire right now? So different versions of what all of this looks like. But that's kind of my demographic of who I work with. And then when it comes to their financial issues, certainly, like you said, probably everybody could use a financial coach. Even if you think you're good with money, sometimes we just need some direction. So this is what I call my clients who are drifters. They're not struggling, but they don't really have a clear plan. They don't know what is the next big goal. And they need some clarity on what their retirement might look like. And sometimes it's even about spending money to enjoy their life in the next 5 or 10 years. And so I have my drifters, sure, to get clarity on that and their investments and those kinds of things. And then I have the other clients who I would categorize as my strugglers. And so these people might have cash flow situation where they are not making enough or they can't figure out how to pay their bills. Some are in debt, right? So then it's a different approach. We're still going to work through my coaching program, but we're going to focus a lot more on debt repayment and, organizing the cash flow with those clients compared to my drifters who usually I spend a lot more time on the investment side.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're able to really personalize the support that you're offering people. So you've got your program, but it's really understanding your clients, the people that you're working with, understanding their needs and struggles and their situations, and then supporting them in a way that's the best fit, which I think is fantastic because everybody has that different relationship and understanding when it comes with money. And I think, like, as with anything, you don't know what you don't know. And it's not like, I don't know, I didn't go to school and learn about managing finances and investing. Those weren't specific courses or classes that I took, and it certainly didn't come up for me in high school. And it feels like a lot of the time it's just learning as you go or figuring things out as you need to. But like, there's so many things out there that you might not even know are options or exist because they're just not things that you've heard about before. Mm-hmm. So for you to be able to listen to your clients and then be able to provide them with that direction and guidance on those things they might not even know about is, I'm sure, incredibly impactful for them and makes a huge difference. Now, you mentioned financial independence. Mm-hmm. And so again, same with sort of money coach, like, what does that exactly mean? There's always these terms kind of out there and we might not be clear on their definition. So like, what do you mean by financial independence, and how would yourself and what you do sort of fit into that financial independence community?
Mm-hmm. So if you go by the strict online definition of what FI is. So it actually comes from FIRE, which stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early. So everybody's vision of what retirement looks like is very different, and everybody's definition of what early is also different. So I don't really care so much about retiring or early because that's very subjective. But if you look at just the FI, financial independence, what that really means is you don't rely on someone giving you money, say from working. You have enough investments that will give you enough money to support your life for the rest of your life. So I generally talk about this as your $1 million account. Okay, it's not necessarily $1 million and it's not necessarily in one account, but if you have this investment of $1 million, that should spit off 4%. It's called the 4% rule from the Trinity study from a while ago. So 4% of $1 million is $40,000. So if you can live off of $40,000 a year, then you need to set a target of having $1 million in your nest egg investment account so that you can retire. So the sooner you hit that $1 million, the sooner you can retire. This would be your FI number. Okay. If you look at that and say, oh, heck, I cannot retire on $40,000. I need $80,000. Great. I love you because it's easy math. That means you need $2 million in your big account. So that's what the firm idea of what FI, financial independence, means. But we also know things are never that simple. You might have rental properties that are contributing to that. You might have pension. You might have your CPP and OAS coming in. So there's lots of variables to work around this. So what I essentially work towards with all of my clients is eventually I want you to be able to retire. Eventually, I want you to have the choice of being work optional. And isn't that a beautiful place to be, right? That's where I was 7 years ago. And so when we work towards that, this is only good for your life because you're going to start finding better alignment to say, this is what I want more of. And the more money that you accumulate there, the more options that you have, right? So when you have money, you have options. Do you want to work? Yes? Great. Continue if you love it. If you don't, maybe you're going to work part-time. Maybe you're going to work seasonally. I don't know. There's lots of options along the way. And so this is just to give some sort of a goalpost to say, I'm working towards financial independence when I do not have to work. I may want to work. It's a very important distinction.
And I love the concept of work optional. What a
Mm-hmm.
beautiful thing, right? Because you're so right. Sometimes we might love what we do, but maybe we don't want to do it Monday to Friday, like 9 to 5. I think about my mom and dad. My dad retired from his 9 to 5 and then he consulted for a number of years, but he didn't have to be somewhere at a certain time on a certain day, like 5 days a week. And my mom, I joke that she retired like 5 times. I'm like, I felt like she wanted to have multiple retirement parties or something because she, retired from like her full-time work, which was very involved. And then, had more flexibility, again, sort of more doing consulting work or contract work. But yeah, such an interesting concept. But then again, a hard thing to aim for if you don't know what you're aiming for and you don't have a plan to get
Mm-hmm.
you there. So you mentioned that teaching is a huge part of what you do as a financial coach. So in coaching people and teaching people to better understand money and how to make their money work for them, to really look at their own relationship with money, like what are some of the tools and strategies that you do to foster the teaching and learning that happens with the clients you work with?
Yeah, another great question. So I spend a lot of time getting to know my clients, but in essence, that's really getting the clients to understand themselves. So in my coaching program, we spend a lot of time talking about their money mindset, their money stories that they've, lived so far, and maybe the stories that they continue to tell themselves, true or not. And then we also spend a lot of time talking about their values because that is the essence. That's how you're going to know you've lived a good life is, did you do the things that you really wanted to do? And so that's the basis of all of the work that I do. So yes, we can talk about financial independence. And yes, I'm going to give you lots of resources talking about how to work the numbers and all of that. But when it comes right down to it, you're going to feel so much more successful on your entire journey when you're in alignment. So not everybody has to rush towards achieving their FI number, right? That's probably low on the list. We want to balance that with, are we enjoying the ride along the way while also being the responsible adults and paying off debt and saving for retirement, doing all those things, right? So I use a lot of resources from the FIRE or FI communities in this for inspiration, if nothing else, right? To see, oh, we didn't even know this existed. I know, but I've curated these resources to say, this is how I want you to learn about this particular topic. Go read this, go watch this YouTube, whatever it is, and then let's do some in our homework. And then let's talk about it next time when we have our meeting. So you get really clear on each of these concepts.
So your clients have to do homework, hey?
Yes, they do. It's like I'm a real teacher. And
Yeah.
who knew? Who knew?
No, and I think that's so good because really to learn, you can't just expect a teacher or a coach just to pour all the information into you and you're just going to through osmosis learn it and it's going to affect your life and make the impact that you're hoping it will. Like you have to be an active participant in your learning. So I love that you are assigning homework and tasks, so taking the things that you're talking about and having your clients apply that knowledge, but also curating resources for people because I think that, we have so much information available to us, but it's like information overload and what's the right information for me and what is actually, good, valid information and not information that's going to take me in completely a terrible or wrong direction for myself. What is actually true, right? So having somebody with expertise in an area help sort of direct us to those really good, valuable resources that are going to help us in the journey that we're on is amazing. Do your clients always do their homework?
Usually, yes,
Okay.
because I make sure that when they sign up, they are ready. They are committed because they want the transformation, right? And so, yeah, sometimes there's, time commitments that get in the way and in between and, that kind of thing. But essentially, yeah, they're there to do the work because they know they don't want to keep living the way they've been living.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They've got that motivation and that reason to put in the effort to make the change. And
Mm-hmm.
change requires some work.
Mm-hmm,
Mm-hmm.
mm-hmm. But that's part of the whole learning is that it is the experience. You have to take the action. You have to learn the new skills and build these new habits so that then they are able to fly on their own, right? And that's
Mm-hmm.
what I want for them.
Yeah, no, I so appreciate you really emphasizing that piece. So it's really the goal for setting people up to be able to take their time with you and apply it ongoing moving forward. They've got those skill sets
Mm-hmm.
themselves and setting them off to fly, spread their wings and fly off on their own. And this emotional piece, I just want to touch on it a little bit more because there really is such emotion tied with money and maybe with how money was talked about while we were growing up or not talked about,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe there were sort of feelings, emotions, words, conversations that we overheard when we were growing up that sort of influenced the way that we look at and feel about money. So you shared with me that your approach to working with people is one where you are rebuilding trust and creating opportunities for learning with compassionate curiosity. And that really for me speaks to like this feeling piece when it comes to money, and obviously respecting the confidentiality with your clients. I don't know if you have like a story or an example you could share that would sort of illustrate what that might look like in practice.
Mm-hmm. And I think there's just so much distrust. Again, people have been burned by their financial institutions or whatever it is. And so there is this distrust, and I have an uphill battle to regain that. But a lot of the work that I do is so personal and in depth. We get over that pretty quick. And so from that point, then there's still a lot of shame, there's a lot of fear. And when people start talking about their money, their anxieties go bzzz, right up top, right? And so as we continue, then we're going to learn. So we're going to build up that competence. We can do the things. As we continue doing the things, we're going to build up our confidence in, yes, I can do the things. And then, oh man, when we get to have the conversations with other people, I love it when my clients come back to me and they say, I was teaching my sister about TFSAs the other day. I mean, when your student has become the teacher, that's the ultimate because they are solid on the understanding. So, I love all of that. But as we approach it, I always have to come with this compassionate curiosity, especially for the people who live in a lot of fear and shame, to say, I just want you to open the credit card statement. I want you to be curious about what that says. Be kind to yourself But let's just take a look. Sometimes it's as basic as that. And so we're going to walk through from there. And certainly, yes, I had a client one time. She would take her credit card statements and not open them, but hide them in her closet. Not throw them in the black bin or the blue bin, right? Not just disregard them because she knew she should do something with it. Nope. She would hide them in her closet. And by the time we finished, not only was she looking at them, she was paying them down. And it was probably a year or two after my coaching program had finished. She sent me an email. She's like, Jolie, I am finally debt free. And I am there to celebrate all of these things because her mindset had such a huge shift. Now, does it matter how much she paid off? No, it could have been $1,000. It could have been $10,000. It could have been $100,000. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter because the biggest change and transformation was in her mindset around, I can do this. I'm going to be curious. I'm going to look. We're going to take baby steps along the way. And then, oh man, she's flying.
Well, and money can be one of those topics that you kind of avoid talking about. And sometimes if it's feeling stressful, maybe you don't want to look at it. Maybe you just don't want to know because then it's like, I have to actually deal with this thing. Then a question came to mind for me as you were sharing this story because, you mentioned values and people really thinking about values when it comes to their life and their plan and their goals and their dreams. But then there's also values attached with money itself. And I know before my husband and I got married, we did like some couples counseling and the topic of money came up, and we're fairly similar in how we look at money and how we want to spend money and save money. Like we were pretty aligned, which I'm grateful for. Like as life goes on, I could see how that could be an enormous source of stress if we were not like aligned on that. So in working with couples, coming in with different values and ideas, how do you approach that? Or what's some of the ways that you support people in working through that challenge and misalignment?
So often it's not really necessarily a misalignment, but it's number one, that they don't have the conversation at all. Okay. So that's usually, or that's one of the common things, or they have the conversation and it does not go well. So sometimes just by nature of having me in the conversation to help facilitate the way that we're going to speak about these things, again, approaching it from a curiosity standpoint to say, well, what is this number? What if? What would you like, right? To explore that for each person. Each person gets a say, and each person is going to have a different feeling about the money. So, for example, I could be working with a couple and we could say, okay, yes, their net worth is $1 million. Yay! One could look at that and say, woohoo, we're rocking it. And the other partner could say, oh my gosh, we're so far behind. It's the exact same number, but their relationship to the number is different. And so their reaction also to their partner is different. And so that's where we get a lot of disjointed feelings between our partners. And so, yeah, we get to talk through a lot of those feelings and to have some normalcy and to say, well, what would be good? What is success? How much is enough? And then we can start to create a plan towards that. But really, it comes down to listening. I do a lot of listening and inspiring and approaching it all with this compassionate curiosity.
A lot of curiosity is required, I'm sure. Yes, in every conversation and with all of your clients. So speaking of curiosity, I've become increasingly curious about money myself, and somebody that I had met through a female entrepreneur group directed me to your Facebook group. And you and I had met at an event with the Forum and Corrales in downtown Calgary. And then this woman directed me to the group and I said, I know this person running this group that lives right here in Calgary. So you have this incredibly popular and very engaged Facebook community called the Canadian Ladies Money Club. And I'm sure that this has changed since I last checked, but there was like 4,729 members. Is it different now?
Oh, we're well over 5,000. I think we're at
Okay.
almost 5,300 right now.
Wow. Okay.
Yes.
So
Yes. So it's exploding. Yeah.
exploding and growing, which makes sense because it's an incredible community of support, really empowering women to look at their relationship with money and feel more confident when it comes with money. So you describe it as Think Book Club, but for finances, and a safe place for Canadian ladies to get together, continue conversations about money, and build a community. So, okay, where did this all start? So why did you decide to create this online community? And if somebody were to be curious and want to join it, what kind of conversations and things might they expect there?
Of all of the things, yes, I'm proud when I work with my certain clients. And of course, that's all confidential, so I don't get to like brag about it. But I am also so proud of the community that I've built over in Money Club. So I started it. I had been part of other Facebook groups before, and certainly some mixed gender and all the whole thing. And I just found a spot that needed a little bit extra love. And so I actually started the group for my past clients as a place for them, because sometimes after you've worked with me and you're like, okay, I know all the things and now I'm excited, I'm doing this investing and now I have these other questions and don't necessarily need you, Jolie, but like, where's my community that I can speak all these questions and get excited with? And so I created it on Facebook, and I don't even remember when, like, I don't know, 3 years ago maybe. And so it has really flourished. I am super proud of the ladies that are in there. And also, I should mention, non-binary are also welcome. So, which has also been a sticking point, but everyone there is very kind, very generous with their answers and their responses. And it's a really safe place to come and ask questions about budgets and investing and those kinds of things, but it's also a place to come and celebrate your wins, to say, I'm finally investing in my TFSA, or I set up my first transfer, or I saved money on this, check out this great deal. And, so it's really a community to celebrate talking about money, because it has been a taboo subject. And so some people just certainly haven't learned on their own. And now, oh man, there are a lot of very engaged people who do a lot of chatter in there, which of course we love. But there's so many that are in there reading and learning and saying, holy cow, my eyes are wide open now. Right. And so that's also part of the beauty. And I'm just really, really appreciative of everybody that's in there and creating it to be the community that it is.
Well, and there just is something so special about community, right? People curious about the same sorts of things that you are and walking through things as you are and being able to lean on one another and ask questions. And as you said too, like celebrate those wins and the progress that's happening in that safe space that you've created. So congratulations on your community that you've created. That's amazing. And yeah, I'm sure it's going to continue to grow. I bet by the time this episode airs, which is not actually that long from now, there will be a new number that we can share. So,
yes, absolutely. Like, I think last week there was about 120 new people that have joined. And so it has grown, certainly. And I now have a couple of moderators that are helping, because there are some things that I simply cannot read every single post in there anymore. But I am just so proud, because you'll get to know who the responding people often are, and you'll say, oh, she's on it. I know what she's going to say. We're good. I know that the answer provided is going to be solid and support whoever it was that was asking that question. Right. And another important thing, I think, is that I allow a lot of anonymous posts, which is a little bit harder for creating the community feel, but also very easy and welcoming when you don't want to have your name and photo and, your whole Facebook identity attached to that. And so I think that just leads people to be able to be more vulnerable and ask the really tricky questions.
Mm-hmm. That's so nice. You've, within that online community, created a space where people can participate in so many different ways. Because you're right, it's like sitting in a classroom. I don't know. I always found teaching, and when working with student teachers, it's often the same 5 students that always put up their hands to answer questions. And there's some that don't want to put up their hand. Like, that's a really hard thing to do. So how can you create a space in a way that they can participate as well? And you've done just that, right? And as you said, there's people learning who may not, maybe right now, want to be, asking the question or providing a response, but they're reading and they're feeling that support and looking at the resources and being engaged in that way. So there's lots of ways to participate actively in the community without necessarily being the one putting up your hand.
Well, and I think the more we learn, as women, as mothers, as part of our communities, the more we learn, the more we do, the stronger our communities in the real world will also be. And so that's also very encouraging too.
Yeah, it creates ripples, doesn't it?
And I probably won't see them, but I certainly feel them when I see the very generous responses that I see over in Money Club when people are chatting. And it's very chatty. Let me tell you, I can't keep up with it all, and I love that.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have, right? It's a good problem to have. Now, speaking of probably one of the questions that would come up in your Facebook community and with your clients as well, and well, you shared it with me actually, full disclosure, is one of your most frequently asked questions. And I wanted to ask you what your response to this question might be. And the question is, should I pay off my debts or should I invest?
And this is, yes, probably one of the most common questions. And I will give you the most common and also most generic answer. It depends. Right?
Of course.
It's personal finance. I can't tell you which is the most right, best answer for you. So my question back to that is, well, what do you value? Do you value being debt-free, or do you value having more in your investments? I don't know. Okay, so we can dig deeper into that. Certainly, with this question, investments or paying off a mortgage, we can do the math. Yep. We can say, okay, your mortgage is now at 6% and your investments are getting, 7 or 8%? They're fairly close. But say 2-3 years ago, when your mortgage was only 2%, and your investments, hopefully also still at that time, were making your 7 or 8%, then there is a bigger difference that would be money in your pocket if you would have been investing. So it would make more sense to do investments. Now it's getting a little bit closer, so we have to think a little bit harder. Now, just because we know what the math answer is, doesn't mean that's the choice you have to make, because sometimes we just say, it's going to feel good to not owe the bank any money. Okay. Now, we don't want to just do that and not also be investing. So everybody's split on how much we should do to each is going to be different based on what they value, right? It's also going to be based on some timelines, right? I have one couple's client right now, and he is adamant, I am going to be mortgage-free by retirement. Okay, when's retirement? Let's work the number backwards and say, this is how much extra you have to put on the mortgage every month. Okay, let's do it. Let's do that, okay? So it depends on what you really want. There are some people that say, you know what, it's still cheap at your 5 or 6% interest rate on your mortgage right now, and hopefully for the long term, you're going to gain more in the investments. I don't know. It also depends how you're investing. So that brings up more questions. I don't know. What is your rate of return? What are you going to expect for your rate of return? There's no guarantees there. Well, there is on your mortgage, right? So it's a complex decision that really comes down to, yes, we can calculate the math, but sometimes we go with the mind and the heart answer anyway.
Good to have that information, though, when you're making a decision like that and
Mm-hmm.
deciding where to go. But of course, there's no easy answer, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and for some people, say in a very expensive real estate market like Vancouver or Toronto,
Mm-hmm.
um, being debt free may never actually happen. They might have to get to the point where, oh, yes, the kids are out of the house and now we're just going to sell and downsize, right? So in that case, more calculations, like it can get very complicated, but it doesn't always have to be the math. We'll do our homework and figure out the math. And then we can
Mm-hmm.
say, well, at least we know.
Yeah.
And maybe we choose that way, maybe we choose the other way.
Yeah.
Or
But
usually it's going to be a blend.
yeah, a blended approach aligned with the numbers, the facts, and then the
Yeah.
feelings. Facts
Yeah.
and feelings together.
Mm-hmm.
So, teaching is a huge part of what you do, as we've discussed. And in looking back, I'm curious about a couple things. So, first
Uh-huh.
of all, like, what was it exactly that influenced your decision to want to pursue accounting or a career involving money and finances? And also, who might a favorite teacher that you've had be? And
Hmm.
why does that person really stand out for you?
Okay. So, yes, we're going way back in the archives to me in grade 10. I was at a small, small town in Saskatchewan. So, not all the classes were offered live. So, I did a correspondence class in accounting. Correspondence classes in accounting with no computers meant that I had like ledger paper that I had to write things out manually and then mail it into the correspondence office in Regina, probably, right? So that was way back in the day. I'm telling you just how old I am. Anyway, I liked the accounting because it was very clear. Debits and credits, man. Balance is logic. Easy. Boom, boom, boom. Yes, I got it. It was like second nature to me. No problem at all. And so I did that in high school. And then, yeah, I did a business degree and then my accounting. It was all just like boom, boom, boom. I was a go-getter, right? I had my degree at 21 and I think I got my designation at 24. So I was hot doing this. It was great. And then I got married. I should mention, yes, I have a husband and a couple kids. I got married.
Yes.
They're around sometimes. And then I had babies. I was the stay-at-home mom for 8 years
Mm-hmm.
because my oil and gas job downtown didn't want me back part-time. And hey, according to my values, we decided for me to be a stay-at-home mom. And yes, our personal finances, our family finances were organized that we could afford to do that. And so that was all kind of playing into how I ended up here, right?
Yeah.
So, but in association to say, well, which is my favorite teacher? I'm going to mention one that has been a big impact more recently. And so this is a course that I took a couple years ago. It's called The Trauma of Money. Fantastic. The leader of this whole course program certification, her name is Chantel Chapman, and she's out of Vancouver. Super fantastic. It's the whole psychology side compared to, my background being the accounting and numbers side of teaching finance. Well, now I'm so much more in tune with the more psychology part of it, so Chantel, absolutely love her. And in fact, next week, I'm going to the Financial Therapy Association conference. And so, there's just so much learning to be done on the softer side. It's not just the can we calculate the math side.
Yeah. Oh, and I love that you're still learning.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I share with my kids is the idea that, there's people out there who are experts in their field. And I would consider you're an expert in your field when it comes to money. You are coaching people. Yet I say to my kids, anyone who is an expert in their field recognizes that there's always more to learn. It's not
Mm-hmm.
like I've got all this figured out and you can't tell me anything more because I am the expert, right? Like true experts have that curiosity and
Mm-hmm.
that recognition that there's more pieces to the puzzle and other things that they can learn about to be to become even better and more knowledgeable. So I love that you've got that lifelong learner mentality and that you've had a recent teacher who's been highly impactful on you and the work that you're doing.
Yeah. And, we have to keep learning, especially with this whole finance thing. For example, if my parents hadn't kept learning, they would probably not have money in a TFSA, right? If I wasn't paying attention, I wouldn't know that for my children who are just starting to launch, right? They're 17 and 19, the first home savings account, brand new last year. We have to keep learning so that we can make use of all of these tools that are available at our disposal now.
Mm-hmm. And they're always changing. Yeah, they're
Mm-hmm.
not just static and staying the same.
Mm-hmm.
So true. So true. And I can't believe you have kids that old. I
I
really
know.
can't. I really can't. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I know we've chatted about this, but yeah, our oldest is graduating from grade 12 and I'm in denial that I could possibly be old enough to have a child graduating from grade 12. It just, yeah. How did that
I know.
happen?
We've kind of been doing this whole practice thing because I wasn't really ready for my youngest to get a job. He started his job two summers ago, and then all of a sudden he was busy all summer. I'm like, wait, what? We're done? So
Yeah.
we've kind of been doing a transition to like, what does this empty nesting, even though they're still both living at home between school and all of the things, I'm like, it's an adjustment for sure.
It's an adjustment. Yeah, we're on the verge. Our oldest has a summer job and we'll be working all this summer. And we're used to, with my husband being a principal and me not working during the summers, we explore, as you and your husband do, and camp and all the things. And it's like, but he's going to be at home working. So what does that look like? So it's, the changes and the seasons and all the things that we need to think about, and that guidance too, right, for our kids, and talking about money and those new opportunities that come up. And it's all a part of the journey. Now, you've had quite the journey, doing lots of different things, having all kinds of amazing experiences. So when you look back on your journey, what would be something that you are the most proud of?
My journey.
So career, life, any piece or part of it, you could talk about something professionally that you're proud of, personally that you're proud of, or both. Yeah.
I think really what it is staying true to my values. And I know that kind of seems like an easy answer, but at the same time, I think that's true. And I think that's what I want all of my clients to feel as well, is that alignment to say, I did it my way. It might not be what the experts say, right? For example, it would have been better financially for me not to stay home for 8 years with the kids. There's lots of those kinds of choices that we make, but when it feels in alignment with what you value, then I think you have fewer regrets.
Yeah. And it can be hard to do. It can be hard to do, to stay aligned with our values, because there are distractions and ideas and things, or voices or people even telling us that, maybe we might want to think about doing things a little bit differently. But yeah, to stay true. I love that that's something that you're proud of and something that is important in the work that you do with your clients.
And I mean, you also have to acknowledge this is a very privileged position, right? And, I talk with lots of newcomers to Canada, and I mean, just having the freedom and the flexibility to say, oh, this is what I want to do, and to be able to make that happen. To say, oh, I want to live true to my values, and yet you still have to buy groceries. So you still, in this capitalist society, need to make some money. And so how does that align? Sometimes there's a real disjoint. So I just want to say, I recognize fully that yes, we made smart choices, and yes, we worked hard, and yes, we probably had an easier start compared to a lot of other people. And so that privilege to be able to make some of these choices, totally appreciate that. But at the same time, what are the small things that each of us can do to find a better alignment? It might not be the ultimate, but how can we live our best life?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you saying that, Jolie, because you're so right. It's not like we need to look at our life and be like, and I'm changing it all. Like that's just not realistic. So yeah, maybe if our 17-year-old didn't eat so much food, that would
No.
help us out. But yeah, you're right. It's like, look, there are realities and responsibilities, and you're right. We all have different circumstances. But yeah, what is a small way? What is
Mm-hmm.
even like one thing, right? Yeah.
And so when I talk about values with my clients, one of the questions is, if money doesn't exist, what would you do with your time? Okay, so what would you do with your time, not with money, because money doesn't exist. So usually they talk about all kinds of things, and then we can break it down by who are you spending your time with, and what are you doing, and where are you, and what time do you get up in the morning, and what time do you go to bed? If money doesn't exist, like this whole dream world. So we're going to spend a lot of time just in Never Never Land. And then I say, okay, hold up. How much of this can we get a little sliver of on Sunday? If we could just say, wow, this is what I really want to do with my life. Okay, can you take 3 hours on Sunday morning and do that? Just to live your dream retirement life or whatever that might be. How can we build little bits of that into your everyday?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it doesn't need to be like all of the things that they're saying. Yes.
That's right.
That's such a great approach and makes it doable. Like
Mm-hmm.
something, as you said, this Sunday that you could
Mm-hmm.
implement and do
And
things a little
often
different.
when I talk to my clients about this, the things that make you so happy and proud and joyful and all of these self-care, what it really comes down to are usually very, very basic and usually don't cost a lot of money. Sometimes it's a scheduling and energy issue, right? We got to make time for those things. But very, very often, it's not necessarily the most expensive things that are bringing us the most joy.
Mm, so true. So absolutely very true.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a few rapid fire questions for you.
Okay.
Okay.
I think I'm ready.
Yes. And one of these, I know you said you might kind of know what you're going to say for one of these questions, but what is something you would love to learn about or something that you would love to learn how to do?
Yeah, so this is something we chatted about. I am in the middle of a system conversion, back end stuff that my clients won't necessarily see. And this is part of being a solopreneur that I love my time coaching my clients. I love everything to do with that. The admin stuff in behind, I have to wear a lot of hats. And sure, I could hire it out, but also I'm very curious to know, how does it all work? And so I have the luxury that I can spend the time to do that. So that's what I'm spending a lot of time and energy learning right now, is how my new system works, and really hoping that all of my integrations and automations work.
Oh, you've got this. You've got this.
Let's
Yeah.
hope.
Yeah. What would be a book or a podcast or a movie or a TV show that you've really learned something from recently?
Oh gosh, something that I've really learned. I'll give you a money related one. It's called the Money Scope podcast. Money Scope, thinking like a doctor doing a scope. And I love it because there's two guys, Canadian, on there talking usually more about corporate and high earners, as in doctors often, right? And how to manage their money. So for me, I've been digging into that, not just for my own personal situation, but for also some of my clients who are also high earners and in those kinds of things. So learning more about that, there's lots of tax implications. I don't want to be a tax expert. Nope. But just understanding some of those other ways around getting that organized, because it is a different situation than regular employees, a T4 employee that has a group RSP matching and that kind of thing. So I've been loving that. Another great podcast that I like to, just for the voyeurism, is called I Will Teach You to Be Rich. So he interviews couples, and he essentially does a lot of what I do in my coaching. I'm probably a little softer. I'm also not made for YouTube and podcasts, so I'm not looking for clicks to, have the little sound bites on there. But it's always interesting, again, just to evaluate the psychology behind all of that, right? So those are a couple that I spend some time recently and learning on.
Yeah, I love that. We'll add those to the show notes for sure. And if you could sit down and have a conversation with someone that you would love to learn from, who would it be and why?
I know this is going to sound a little bit cliche, but probably my late grandma. Not that she's going to teach me money or anything to do with my business or anything like that, just more her life. That's it.
Yeah, I feel you on that one. I think of a million questions that I wish I could ask my grandma too.
Mm-hmm.
So, throughout our conversation, Jolie, we've talked about education and teaching and learning, and it's obviously a huge part of what you do. And it really is such a big part of every aspect of our lives. And I'm just wondering if you have any final thoughts or words of wisdom to empower or support people on their own teaching and learning journeys.
I love that you just called it that, because that's exactly what I call my coaching program. It's a learning journey, right? There is so much that we cover. You're never ahead or behind. I think of this whole learning finance and even your personal finance story. Just think of us like we're all just wandering in the woods. And so some people are going to see the lake, and some people are going to see the river, and some people are going to climb the mountain, and some people are going to struggle up that mountain, and some people are going to go to the valley. Everybody's doing something different. And so when it comes to money, getting in tune with yourself, understanding what's important to you, understanding your numbers and your goals, oh man, that means everything. And all the external noise that's happening is generally irrelevant, right? So your learning journey is yours. And so you can start small. There's so many resources. And if you use the library or online to start, dip your toes in, see, okay, is this for me? You might find a book and be like, nope, that one's not for me. Great. You do not have to finish it. Find one that does resonate with you and then continue on. It's a learning journey, and it's going to continue, and hopefully for your whole life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I love that advice. Thank you so much, Jolie. And I just want to thank you so very much for sharing your time and your story and all your words of wisdom with us today. And if our listeners want to find out more about you and all the things that you're up to and what you're doing, where are the best places for them to find you?
So I'm probably most active on my Instagram. So yes, if you go to my Instagram stories, you'll see lots of camping pictures coming up. I'm just giving you a fair warning. So Instagram at Wellbeing Coaching. I also have a Facebook page by the same name. And then I have my Facebook group, which is Canadian Ladies Money Club. And if you want to chat with me, you can go to my website. There's a link there to book directly with me. It's free consult. I do them all the time to answer your questions, to give you resources, to give you some inspiration, and see how I can help. So you will find that also at wellbeingcoaching.com.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so very much for joining me today. It was fantastic to chat with you and connect with you and to learn from you.
Thank you again so much for inviting me. It was great.